You're listening to the Health Courage Collective podcast, episode 69, Death at the Crossroads. Welcome to the Health Courage Collective podcast, the show for women who are too busy to slog through hours of generalized, inapplicable, and often contradictory health information, but too smart to ignore that a few minutes of focused attention now can prevent years of suffering in the future. I'm your host, Christina Hackett, a pharmacist who doesn't want you to live on prescriptions, a certified coach specifically trained to maximize your potential, and a compulsive learner obsessed with preventative, cutting-edge, holistic, and integrative medicine. I'm on a mission to increase your physical and mental resilience so you can fearlessly look forward to your next 40-plus limitless years. Your time is now. Let's go. Hi there, welcome to another episode. I'm so happy you're here. I hope you're doing fantastic. I am doing great. I just got home from the gym. I had a little interruption in my training regimen, and so I'm finally getting back into it, and I'm super tired, but in the best way, like almost a little bit shaky. And they had this fun Halloween playlist going in the background, so that was kind of fun. Have you started using the phrase, "That's like me"? It's the best. Got the kitchen cleaned up before bed. That's like me. Prepped a healthy lunch for tomorrow. That's like me. Was patient with my teenage driver. That's like me. It is. You are awesome. I cannot believe that Halloween is only 5 days away. Can you believe it? I love Halloween. You can get super into it and have a ton of fun, but there's no pressure if you don't want to. It's like a big deal, but also no big deal. Plus, I just really love this time of year. Anyhow, so today we're going to talk about death at the crossroads. This is a phrase I got from Phil Stutz. It's a good one for making choices. We all have a ton of choices to make every day, and there are lots of choices that need to be made today if we want good odds of staying active and medication-free for many years to come. Positive psychologist Tal Ben-Shahar says, "Choice unleashes the potential within each moment. As you become mindful of the potential within this moment, your life gains momentum, becomes momentous. When a moment matters, life matters." End quote. I love that. Do you want your life to matter? Then you need to have moments that matter. Do you want your life to be momentous? Then become mindful of the potential within this moment. The way you unleash the potential within each moment is by making a choice. Author Alex Korb teaches us that when everything is up in the air, the amygdala, that's the fight or flight part of your primitive brain, by the way, becomes more reactive. So if you tend to worry, reduce your options and make quick decisions whenever possible. As soon as you make a decision, however small, everything starts to feel more manageable. End quote. What do you think? I wouldn't describe myself as a worrier per se, but the times that I have felt worried or kind of unmoored are for sure the times when everything was kind of up in the air. And I don't think I've ever realized it before, but what makes me start to feel grounded again is making a small decision and then another one. Have you noticed that too? Just picking something is way more helpful than spending a lot of time deliberating or trying to decipher the super secret right answer. Like, if you think about it long enough, you'll figure out that there's one magical road over a rainbow and everything else would have been wrong. We all know that there are pros and cons to almost every decision, so most of the time, there aren't right and wrong decisions. At least, not the ones we end up wringing our hands over. Most of us don't spend much time deciding whether to start cooking meth, start abusing children, or start committing hate crimes, right? It's the things that have multiple right choices that hang us up. Indecisiveness leads to a downward spiral because it enhances your feeling of being out of control, which never feels good. Well-being comes with a sense of agency or control over what happens to us. So if you ever feel like your well-being is in a downward spiral, see what tiny decision you can make that will help you feel the power of your agency a little bit more. Hey, quick question. Have you ever tried blue light filtering glasses yet? You probably know that the blue light coming out of all your screens can strain and possibly damage your eyes. So protecting your eyes is a good idea. I've tried a few different kinds of blue light filtering glasses over the years, but lately my eyes were physically aching after looking at screens. So I got a pair of glasses from I Buy Direct with Sight Relax lenses that are designed to relieve eye strain in addition to blocking blue light. They have a really subtle magnification at the bottom, which I wasn't sure I would like, but I really do. And the lenses are a lot more clear. I always felt like my other blue light lenses were never all the way clean. If you've never tried I Buy Direct, there's a link in the show notes for $10 off your first pair of glasses that you can use in addition to 15% off your first pair. They have great deals on prescription glasses and sunglasses in addition to blue light glasses, and they have so many different kinds of frames to choose from really conservative ones to really bold. My Sight Relax glasses look like tortoiseshell, but it's actually little flowers on the frame. Cute. Okay, back to the episode. Worrying is often triggered by wanting to maximize everything, like trying to find a car that's cheap, reliable, safe, sexy, the right color, fuel efficient, will need the fewest repairs, will impress your kids' friends, will parallel park for you, and has insanity mode. When your prefrontal cortex has to loop through everything, it actually increases depression and worry. So make your choice based on just one or two values. If you know the thing you care about above all else is that your car can dance with flashing lights, music, and gull-winged doors, that makes it pretty easy to pick which car to buy, right? The word decide comes from two Latin words, de and cere, that together mean to cut off. To decide something means to cut off other possibilities. When we're stuck in indecision, cutting something off seems hard. I mean, don't we want to keep our options open? I love what Raymond Charles Barker says. Indecision is actually the individual's decision to fail. When you're indecisive, that's a decision to fail. A decision is cutting off other possibilities, so being indecisive is cutting off the possibility of success. This is the reason to want to die at the crossroads. When you decide on something, you cut off the other options, and those other possibilities die. And that's a good thing because it's the only way you can go all in on the one thing that you've chosen. So Phil Stutz tells us that what gives us power in our lives is to die at the crossroads, to come to a decision point, decide, and die to the other options. This is why people are indecisive and don't like making decisions. It's painful to them to lose out on the possibilities of a path, and they don't want to die to that possibility. I can totally relate to that. I don't like the idea of feeling like I'm limiting myself, but remember that indecision is the decision to fail. If we're at the crossroads and we don't make a choice because we don't want any of the other paths to shrivel up and die, we don't get anywhere. We make no progress in any direction. There are always trade-offs with every choice we make, but when you can learn to cut off the other choices, you'll be so much more effective. When you consciously allow the other choices to die, even if it feels uncomfortable, you can then put all of that energy that you might have spent floundering or deliberating to concentrating effort on the one path that you have chosen. There's immense power in just having definitively decided. Think how much more effective you are at things you've decided to go all in on. When we're all in, we've got momentum and clarity, and even when we're working hard, it feels easier because we know exactly what we're doing. It's kind of a relief, honestly. We already know that for the most part, there aren't right and wrong decisions. We're the ones who make our decisions right. It's up to us, and the main way we do that is by going all in on it. Of course, we can change our minds and die at the crossroads again and make another choice if we feel like that's the right thing to do in the future. But dying at the crossroads really does save a lot of wasted effort and direct all that energy toward the path that you've chosen. It seems hard, but it makes everything easier. The way Phil Stutz recommends using this tool is to write your choices out on paper and then draw a tiny splinter arrow out and around in all the directions representing all of the possible choices. There could be tons of them. Then draw a really big, wide, fat, dark, bold arrow representing what you have chosen. Then you use your pen sword to cut off all the little arrows, cross each one out, dying to that possibility, and go all in on your one choice. This seemingly difficult death really does help you lead a more calm, confident, purpose-driven, and enthusiastic life. When you die to the other possibilities, you can finally fully live into the one that you've chosen, and that feels so good. In his book, The One Thing, Gary Keller says, when you want the absolute best chance to succeed at anything you want, your approach should always be the same. Go small. Going small is ignoring the things you could do and doing what you should do. It's recognizing that not all things matter equally and finding the things that matter most. It's a tighter way to connect what you do with what you want. It's realizing that extraordinary results are directly determined by how narrow you can make your focus. The way to get the most out of your work and your life is to go as small as possible. When you go as small as possible, you'll be staring at one thing, and that's the point. End quote. How do you feel about staring at only one thing? It feels kind of scary to cut yourself off from other choices, but it can be paradoxically extremely liberating. We have a limit to the number of decisions we can make in a day, so choosing not to choose some things every day can give you a lot of your life back. Here's a little math I did since I'm nerdy like that. Do you want 1 week per year that you could spend doing something deeply meaningful or restorative? Does that sound good? What kind of impact would a bonus week allow you to create? Spending 2 minutes every day deciding on what to wear adds up to 12 hours per year waffling over black pants or blue pants, silver jewelry or gold. Spending 4 minutes per day deciding what to have for lunch adds up to 24 hours per year spent reopening the refrigerator door and hoping something new has magically appeared. 10 minutes 3 times a week deciding whether to exercise or what you should do for your workout adds up to 26 hours a year spent deliberating about whether or how to move your body. 5 minutes every night spent trying to decide what to watch adds up to 30 hours a year weighing the pros and cons of My Monkey Baby versus Michael Bolton's Big Sexy Valentine's Day special. I mean, one's about couples who feel called to adopt monkeys as pets, and the other has saxophone Santa Claus and Brooke Shields, so it's a tough one. So all of that adds up to 96 hours, which would be 6 waking days or 12 work days worth of time just deliberating over choices. It's totally fine if it's worth it to you to think about those things every day. But if there are other areas where it's not worth it, how could you reduce your decision fatigue? I'm not to the point of being able to decide on a uniform like Steve Jobs, but I do like the idea of a capsule wardrobe where everything matches everything else. Not that I've done that either, but it is an aspiration. But I do love that I spend 0 time per day thinking about what to have for breakfast and almost 0 time thinking about what to have for lunch. Having my workouts and other self-care routines on autopilot also saves a ton of time and brain cells. What do you think would work for you? Don't fatigue your decision-making muscles on stuff that you don't actually care deeply about or don't need variety in. Making a decision once and then never having to think about it again works well for important stuff that needs to be repeatedly done. Like, brushing your teeth. You decided once in elementary school when they gave you that red dye tablet that showed where your teeth weren't clean. Did you do that in elementary school? I don't think they do that anymore. It's probably some kind of toxic chemical or something. Sad. Anyway, you decided once to always brush your teeth twice a day. So now you don't spend 12 hours a year deciding whether or not to brush your teeth. You just automatically do it. It seems to me that most people think that the reason their life isn't as amazing as they'd hoped is that they don't have enough discipline. It's due to a personal moral failure. If only they could get a little more discipline, everything would fall into place. They'd be thin and fit and rich and changing the world, and they'd have great hair. They have 1,000,001 things that they need to be more disciplined at, and then they would be set. I love what author Greg McKeown says in his great book, Essentialism. The only discipline we're lacking is the disciplined pursuit of less. It's a good book all about the power of doing less but better, going big by going small. He encourages you to consider the question, if I could only be truly excellent at one thing, what would it be? So, what's your one thing? The best way to be effective at it is to die at the crossroads to all of the other possibilities. That's what gives you the power to be truly effective at the one thing that's fully worthy of your full attention. Dying to the other possibilities gives you focused power, but it doesn't limit you. Actually, I think it does the opposite. As far as making healthy changes go, it doesn't much matter which you start with because the research shows that following through on a single change, say moving every hour and trying to get 5,000 steps overall, spills over into other areas. Focusing on one thing naturally causes you to eat less junk food or go to bed earlier because you're a healthy person who moves every hour. So it naturally follows that you would drink more water and go to bed earlier. It's magical, really. You can just start wherever you want. If you remember way back in episode 16 on behavior design, I told you about this YouTube video of a physics professor in a school hallway demonstrating the power of geometric growth. One domino can knock over another domino that's 50% larger than it. This is a big deal. If you start with your standard 2-inch domino, the 10th domino in line would be the height of Peyton Manning. The 19th would be the size of the Leaning Tower of Pisa, and the 23rd the size of the Eiffel Tower. The 31st Mount Everest, and the 57th would be the distance from the Earth to the Moon. Have you ever been a domino-er? Is that what they're called? Not the pizza. Is that what someone who sets up dominoes is called? Anyway, 57 dominoes in a row, I don't think is really all that many. Imagine setting it up and starting with a standard domino and using it to knock over the 57th domino, which is the height of the distance to the moon. That's insane because that's geometric growth. I'll put a link in the show notes to the YouTube video if you're interested. Put all your energy into knocking over your one next domino, which can start out pretty tiny. In the video, he has to use tweezers to put his starting domino up because it's so itty bitty. Generate enough focused force to knock over that one tiny little domino, and in only 10 more things, you're knocking out Peyton Manning. No offense, Peyton. I'm sure you're listening. We're just focusing on one thing sequentially. Less, but better. Going small to go big. Dying to all the other choices in order to finally be able to live. Gary Keller, from his book, The One Thing, says, "The trick to success is to choose the right habit and bring just enough discipline to establish it. That's it. That's all the discipline you need." End quote. Phew, what a relief. You don't need to do 1,000 things in order to change your life. You don't need massive amounts of discipline. Just enough discipline to pursue less and establish one well-chosen habit. Your first tiny little domino. Don't underestimate its power. We're talking about geometric growth here. I know it can feel unpleasant to die at the crossroads, to cut off most of your options. But next time you need to make a decision, maybe you can draw all those tiny little spindly arrows and then make the big fat one. Cut off all the little ones so you can go all in on your choice. Not making a choice is choosing to fail. As you can probably tell, I love quotes, I collect them and regurgitate them, and I always kind of think that I've reached a point where I've heard them all. Like, well, that's it for me, I've heard it all. So I was really struck when I heard this quote from Soren Kierkegaard for the first time the other day. To dare is to lose one's footing momentarily. Not to dare is to lose oneself. It's so true. Daring to do something like die at the crossroads feels like losing your footing. But if you aren't willing to lose your footing momentarily, you'll lose yourself. And that's way scarier than dying at the crossroads. Thank you so much for being here today. I hope you have a super fun Halloween. Next week, we're going to talk about the problem, or rather 6 problems with supplements. Until then, be willing to die at the crossroads and don't be normal. Thank you so much for tuning into the Health Courage Collective podcast. I am truly honored that you have paid me the enormous compliment of your time and attention. I would be so grateful if you would share this podcast with someone you know and subscribe so you never miss an episode. This podcast is for entertainment and information purposes only. Statements and views on this podcast are not medical advice. This podcast, including Christina Hackett and producers, disclaim responsibility for any possible adverse events by use of information contained herein. If you think you have a medical problem, consult a licensed physician.